Welcome to the Lighthouse Experiment, a Freedom Center Church podcast. They're going to all have to give approvals.
I approve this recording.
I approve this.
Yes, I approve this message.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're right back in that, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
Yuck.
Awesome. Okay, Jim, how do you want me to do introductions tonight? Is there any specific way, Brandon, that what is your, I can do it by position. I can just say we have Brandon Smith, officer, Brandon Smith on.
Brandon Smith works.
Okay,
works.
That's good. Awesome. That's great. Well, welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back to the Lighthouse Experiment Podcast. This week, we have Brandon Smith on as our guest. We're so grateful to have you on, and as well as Chaplain Jim Parkin and myself, Ashley Chandler. So welcome back. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, we've been trying to set this up for a while, and I just am so unorganized in most things that I often what happens, man, is like on Tuesday, I'm like, oh, podcast is tomorrow. I've done it again. So now with my position up here at MMR, we have you this week, and then the assistant VP next week, and then the VP the week after that.
That's awesome.
And so
nice.
Now I have stuff scheduled out.
Very
so, what we're going to get into tonight. So, we're going to honor your dad, man.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Because I was kind of, I was thinking about this episode, and with that, I think just naturally with this discussion, we'll get into legacy. And so I was doing the math today, or last night really, in my head. And I've been actually, between my time in the Army and with fire service and EMS, I've actually been in service for 27 and a half years. And I'm 52, so that was like more than half my life I've been doing the thing,
Yep, me too. About 20-ish years. So.
And can you think of anything else that you would, I sincerely can't think of another thing that I would have wanted to spend my life doing.
Not at all. I mean, I toy with the idea, at work sometimes it gets frustrating. It's like, I'm going to go sell cars, but at the end of the day, that would never actually happen.
Oh, man.
So they would never happen. I couldn't imagine doing anything else. I mean, it's the world I was raised in, and
right.
It's kind of what I was born and meant to do, I guess. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So now, did your dad, was he in the military as well, or no?
No, he wasn't.
But he was just like his entire life, it seems like he was in service to his community in one way, shape, or form.
Yep, absolutely. So at 18, as soon as he was old enough to jump into it, he did. He was a dispatcher first, and then went on to the police academy, and then, did the whole thing his entire life. Same with him. There was nothing he ever could have imagined doing differently as a career or anything. It was always about service to the community and stuff like that. So that's how he lived his life. That's what we all grew up watching him do.
Right.
So.
And what's interesting too is, so my dad, he passed away when I was 28. He died in 1998. Different because he had been battling Alzheimer's. He had early onset Alzheimer's. I think today, kind of in the modern era, if they were able to research it, it probably would have been more of a CTE issue.
Mm-hmm.
Because we grew up riding dirt bikes, and he crashed his quite a bit,
right.
And it was just different times, different equipment.
Yeah.
But so it was this long process of it just seems dad's not right until he's kind of out of control. We can't keep him in the house. He'd escape and stuff. So we would have alarms on the doors, and then it ends up he's got to be in a nursing home. And then gradually now there was probably for the last 5 years, he had no idea who any of us were,
mm-hmm.
And then when he passes away, it's still shocking, but at the same time, there's so much mixed emotion with that too, right?
Yeah.
Because you're almost like, man, just let this dude be out of his this misery.
Right.
But then also this weird kind of guilt for like, am I like actually praying for my old man to die? And now I feel relieved because he has died. And so there was like all kinds of that emotion, you know what I mean? So, but he did not do, he was a Marine. He was a Marine drill sergeant in the era where guys had been getting ready to go to Korea.
Oh, okay.
He was actually court-martialed for throwing a beatdown on a kid who told him he was an objector.
Oh.
And you remember.
Oh, yeah.
Some things you just don't tell your drill sergeant.
That's right. Absolutely.
And that's one of them. So, like, and nothing came of it. He was fine. Didn't really, but he for sure, the full court martial.
That's kind of funny.
Yeah, super funny. I just now found out about this, like probably a year ago. My mom was like this and that, and he was court-martialed, and I was like, "Skirt, what?" And it's like, "Oh yeah, this kid said he wasn't gonna go, and your dad threw him a beating." I'm like, "Oh, makes a lot of sense." But he worked for
that was that era, though,
right?
You know,
yeah,
he worked for GM and regretted it. So it was the kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I was super young. I feel like 28's not old. But he left us with enough to get us through all these years. You know what I mean? It was just,
yeah.
So his legacy is with us, but he worked for Pontiac and kind of like the white collar thing, you know, so we'd move a lot, and he hated it, dude, like hated it. And would always be like, do not do this. Do not.
Yep.
You know, so similar. It's just that he didn't take the path. He directed us. Kind of. Now my younger brother was in the Army. My older brother did not, because all he wanted to do was be, and this is way before Top Gun, but he just wanted to be a naval aviator. And when he couldn't because of his vision, he was like, "Yeah, screw that." So
I think at one time we all wanted to be naval aviators.
Yes,
thanks
of course.
to Top Gun. I mean, it was, you know, there was all of us men. There was at some point that's what we wanted to do, because Tom Cruise made it look cool. So,
yeah.
You know, it's dumb, dude. So I saw that back in the day, and of course, and then like just before I went in the Army, I had gone with a buddy to see, remember Navy SEALs with Charlie Sheen?
Yeah.
Then it was that. Oh, I'm going to do that because that's real. Because you just like, Ashley, there's a scene, if you haven't seen that movie, where they're driving over a bridge in a Jeep, and Charlie Sheen just jumps out of the Jeep off the bridge into the water. And so instantly I'm like, oh, that's plausible. I'm going to do that job.
Absolutely. Yeah, he gets fed up with the conversation and just this giant.
That's why
bridge
it's not even part of the mission. He just gets.
He's tired of the conversation.
He's with his two SEAL buddies, and they're talking about relationships or whatever. And Charlie Sheen's like, "No, I'm good." It just jumps out of the Jeep, off the bridge, in the ocean or whatever. Yeah, great movie. But yeah.
So he did. So your dad was. I didn't realize that he was a police officer as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then.
Yep. So he started off as a dispatcher in the city of Grand Blanc. Went to the police academy. He was a police officer, city of Grand Blanc, for a number of years. Got promoted to detective. Did that, but he was a firefighter the whole time.
Right.
He became a firefighter. Same with my Uncle Larry. They were both firefighters together on Grand Blanc Fire Department. And he left the law enforcement side and got into the code enforcement, building inspecting, and all that stuff for the city. Did that for a number of years. And then I can't remember what year this was. I want to say 2000, early 2000s, because right when I joined Grand Blanc Fire, he had just taken over, or was about to take over as the fire chief out in Fenton.
Yep.
Yes,
I remember that.
Yep, he was doing that, and he was actually in the old, where the fire hall restaurant is now. That's the fire station, and that's where he started.
Cool.
That's where he started. Ushered them into the new building that they're currently housed in today.
Oh wow.
And then he did that for a couple of years, and then for health reasons he left and got back to the building inspecting, but did it for a private company. And they did that until he retired. It's funny though, because when I joined, I remember being a kid, and my dad teaching rookie firefighters.
Mhm.
And one of them was Troy Branchow. So I was,
Really?
yeah, I was the victim that Troy had to find during search and rescue. So then when I became a firefighter, Troy I think he was a captain at the time.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. So then he is training me, and it's like, my dad trained you, so that was kind of a cool,
that is really cool.
little, yeah, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then, and then he worked for Safe Built forever. He was the building official for Troy, South Lyon, a whole other host of municipalities, and then he retired. Was in Costa Rica, and then he got that call to start Grand Blanc City Fire Department.
Ashley, and this is cool because we had like 7 days. No, that's an exaggeration.
it was a short amount of time. I remember you saying
it was like,
short.
How long
was
90
days. 90 days to start from scratch with nothing.
This is
and it's
kind
funny
of
'cause my dad,
exaggerated from a storytelling for you, Ashley. So basically,
well, Jim Weekend always says he never lets the facts ruin a good story. So we'll just go with it.
So forever, like when I first got in the fire service, Grand Blanc Fire was just Grand Blanc Fire, and it covered the city and the township. And then they made some moves, and there was like this weird, like they hired a bunch of engineers. So there'd be 5 full-time guys, and the rest of us would have to pick up shifts, and all these changes were happening. Were you on the department for any of that?
I was there when it was first being discussed and talked about picking up the full-time guys, but then I left in 2006, and that's when I went in the Army. So I left right before all of that kind of came to fruition. So
so that was a move. And then at that time I had taken time because I was just deep on the medical side. So I'd kind of stepped away from the fire department. Then they make this move so you could pick up shifts and just do like an 8-hour shift. And I did that for a little bit. And then it just got all the politics within the department and stuff kind of started happening. And then they've done that for a cycle. Then it's back up to vote for a millage. And I'm like 80% sure I have this correct, but the township got theirs. And then I think the mayor put theirs on later in the November ballot and got it. And then the township kind of was like, well, we're going to dissolve the fire commission, which was like the party that governed us all. And we're going to take your millage and then contract, like the city will contract to the township and will cover you. And the way I like to tell the story is the mayor shot the dude double fingers and said, actually, no, you're going to get out of my building and I'm going to start my own department. Like I said, I've embellished a little.
But for somebody that doesn't understand all that stuff, that just sounds like crazy talk. Like, I don't understand like half of what you just said, Jim. So it's just, that stuff is frustrating to me because I'm like, at the end of the day, like, we just need fire for our citizens.
Right.
And that was pretty much the way of it. I mean, it was, the township basically came back to the city and said, you're going to give us all your millage money and you're going to contract with us, like Jim said. But the city came back and said, well, wait a minute, our millage is X amount of dollars. Show me where it costs X amount of dollars for you to run calls in the city. And so that was an argument for a little while. The township basically said, well, here's the deal. You can either contract with us or start your own. So the mayor and the city manager said, we'll start our own. So, they called my dad and asked, he was in, like I said, he was retired. My stepmom both retired. They were spending the winter in Costa Rica because they wanted to be snowbirds, but they didn't want to be your typical ones. Just went to Florida. They had to go Costa Rica, Puerto Rico, all this stuff. But they called him and asked, hey, would it be possible for us to start our own fire department? My dad's like, yeah, of course. There's a lot of things involved with it. But yeah, for the amount of money that you have in the village, absolutely be done. I guess they called him back the next day and said, hey, do you want the job? Do you want to do it? So, my stepmom had worked for the city of Grand Lake for 30 years too. She was a city treasurer. I mean, she worked there forever. So she had deep roots in the city as well. And I remember it was like February of 2019. My dad sent me a message on Facebook. Said, hey, do you know anybody that's, wants to get back into the fire service, get back in the game or whatever, besides yourself? And I said, well, yeah, absolutely. I was like, I might know a couple guys, right? I mean, everybody, all of us have a guy for something, right?
Yep.
He's like, all right. He's like, well, I might have an opportunity. I said, okay, what is it? He's like, well, I'll tell you when I get back. Well, he wasn't coming back until March. So And this is like February. Because my dad played things close to the vest. Like this just how he was. He's like,
funny.
Yeah, he's like, come see me when I get back. We'll talk about it. So he gets back, and they were living in Beaverton at the time. And I go up there and I'm all excited, right? Like, what's this thing? And he breaks down the whole story. I mean, he got into the whole politics of it and, some of the things that happened. And he's like, so the city wants to start their own. And he said, I told them I'll do it, but the first thing I'm going to do is bring my son on as the captain. And he's like, do you want to do it? I said, absolutely. He goes, hold on. Before you say yes, we only have 90 days. I said, what do you mean? I was like, what do you mean we only have 90 days?
Yes.
Like, I was like, what do we have? Do we have anything? He's like, we don't have anything. He's like, we got me, and now we got you. He's like, we don't have a building. We don't have trucks. We don't have guys. We don't have, firefighters. We don't have equipment, nothing. But I mean, and the next day he called the mayor. I think it was like the next day. Said, this is what we're going to do. And we went to work. I mean, it was.
Dude. So where did you get equipment from? Like, did you buy some used for like, or just
bought it?
Yeah. You just got to go through and buy it.
Yep. So we knew some of the distributors and people that sold.
But that's like going to Walmart and just buying a truck. You know what I mean? Like that.
Funny story.
How long does it
kind
take?
Of for Dennis Smith, it seems like it is. So
yeah,
I'm just saying.
So funny story. They actually have it's once a year. They do it down in Novi. You can go down there and it's just fire trucks that are for sale. Like it's in the convention center down there. Yeah, you go on there and it's like you're shopping at Walmart, but it's fire trucks and you're just walking around.
So cool.
They
okay, the next time this happens, I'm gonna go to this because this is
that's rad, dude.
Yeah, they serve drinks, so you're walking around imbibing some alcohol while purchasing fire trucks. I mean, it's you walking like, oh, that one's 2.5 million. Okay, no, that's not in the budget. Let's go find this one.
Right.
But a lot of the problem was, and Jim knows this, whenever departments are purchasing new trucks, they usually spec them out over a course of time. It could take a year or two to actually build them and get them. And we're telling the guys like, hey, listen, we're interested in this truck, whatever. Like, okay, well, here's the time frame. He's like, no. I got 90 days. And the look on all of these salespeople's faces are like, what? That's just not done. He's like, well, it's going to be. Like, because that's just how my dad was too. He's like, it may not be how it's been done before, but that's how you're going to do it now. And we did. I mean, we got even the turnout gear takes at least 6 weeks, if not longer, to get one set of gear. And somehow I don't know. The way he did it was just he was very good at getting people to.
Right, man. And it was like done. And like so. Kind of to circle back, I remember hearing of him, and just because him and Harms would chirp, they chirp each other back and forth. Yep. But like when he was building out the station in Fenton, that's when I like started hearing the name and stuff like that. And so for my side of this, Ashley, so this process has started. So now we got a chief and a captain, and then for those of us who had left Grand Blanc Fire because it was just no longer any fun. No one really wanted to deal with the inner politics or any of that. So word's on the street that this is about to happen. So Pete Alexander, a buddy of mine who lives in my neighborhood here, he calls me up. He's like, hey, this is about to go down. And I'm like, who's going to be the chief? He's like, Dennis Smith. I'm like, here's his number. Give him a call if you're in. And I called him. I said, hey, I'm just seriously, hey, chief, I texted actually, because I don't like talking on the phone. I hear there's an opportunity to the city fire department. He hits me back, yes, there is. And I was like, I'm in. And he's like, cool, come see me tomorrow. I'll be at the city offices. And that was my interview via text.
That sounds about right.
And we just built, like, literally this dude just came in 90 days, built a full-on department.
That's phenomenal. Well, that says a lot about him. A lot about the whole idea behind people being willing to follow the guy because of the mission he's on and the confidence and the drive that he knows that this is what he's doing. And people are like, yeah, sign me up. I don't even need you to give me directions and all the details.
I'm in.
Yeah. So it says a lot about him.
Well, and it was an amazing process to watch and to be a part of, and just to sit back and watch this thing kind of unfold. I mean, because we didn't take possession of the fire station until the night before we were supposed to go live. Like, because we didn't we got the keys the night before. We had to go in, clean the whole place, and move everything in, get everything in. And I mean, and we were pushing right to I'm not exaggerating when we say like the last minute before we went live at midnight that night for the services to turn over to the city. We were still, but
wow,
he did it. But, same thing, like the word got out, there were obviously some people that were pretty upset about it, but for the most part, people that had left, like Jim and Pete and some other guys were like, yep, we're here. Like, because it came from that sense of service, right? They just wanted to serve the city. They didn't want to do with the politics. They didn't want to, I remember my dad being like, hey, so this guy Jim Parkin texted me and said, he used to work for Grand Blanc, blah, blah, blah. And, did you work with him? I was like, yeah, I knew him. I was like, don't hire him. He's not, don't bring him on. But I'm kidding. I said, absolutely. Then he said Pete was talking about it. And I actually met that day when he met with Pete and John. I was there that day. I was like, yeah, bring them too. I was like, I learned from all three of those guys. Like, they helped teach me and train me when I was here before. They'd all be great additions. So, and then I think our goal, my dad and I's goal, was to have at least 5 certified firefighters when we started, or at least a roster of 5. So 7, including me and him. And I think when we started, we had 20 guys on the roster. So, and they weren't all certified. We had to put a bunch through the academy too, but but still, it was just, people kind of came out of the woodwork to just jump on.
It's cool to see that. It's cool to
amazing.
See, and especially in kind of the days we're living in, it's cool to see that there's still people out there that when the call goes out, they'll be, yeah, man, I don't know what that is, but I'll do it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And a lot of the guys, that's what it was, man. They're like, no clue, but I'll do it. I will say, serving with you guys this last time, and like, because I have a neck injury, I can't do fire anymore, so still their chaplain, but that was the best time. Honestly, that was the best time in my career in the fire service, just watching that thing go so fast.
Yep, it did too. It was, from everything, even when we did that accelerated academy for all the new guys too. That was another thing. The fire academy is typically 6 months, I think, is what it's at now. We got that knocked out in 3.5, 4 months. Like, it was just, we found a guy, him and another guy, they teach academies. We're like, hey, listen, this is what we need. We got to have these guys done, trained, certified, and tested by this day. And he's like, okay, we'll get it done. And, it's like, praise to the guys that went through it, because they had a lot of long days and long hours and weekends, and they sacrificed a lot of their time to be able to get it done. And they all did it. They all showed up and made it work. And most of them are still there. So, so it was, so we had cops too that I think Rhino was the only certified one at the time.
Right.
But then we had a couple of cops that came over. Even the chief of police came over, went through the fire academy and got certified. It was just this whole community thing just kind of came together. And that was my dad's thing that he always wanted it to be. When we first started it, it was the first conversation we had, is he wanted it to be that old school community fire department where your cops are on it, your other people that are involved in the community, and to have it be that kind of that central hub where firefighters come to, their families can come to, you get together and do cookouts, you're eating together, the community come to, and it happened. And it's still happening today. So it was pretty great. It was pretty amazing.
It was an amazing time for sure. And that is honestly, Ashley, that's why I'm chaplain right there. Because Chief Smith, I was like just walking into a training one Monday night. He said, hey, come in here. And he said, hey, I'd really like to have the department have a chaplain. Do you want to be the chaplain? I'm like, yeah. Like, what do you need from me? He's like, whatever you say. So that's why I went to Pastor Jim. I said, they just need a letter on file saying that you're kind of, and that was it.
Yep.
It was just, he was very much a guy that was, like you said, Brandon, that was just like, okay, this is going to happen. So, and then that's it. It was really a cool time.
You know, that was his thing. Is I remember being a kid going to his office when he was working as a building inspector. He had this sign up in his office that said, "I'm not interested in why it can't be done. I'm interested in how you're going to do it." And I saw that come to full fruition putting that fire department together with him, because people were telling him, "Oh, it can't be done that way. It can't be done that way." And he'd sit there and go, "I don't care that it can't. This is what you're going to do. This is what we have to do. Like, we don't have a choice." And
right.
You know, it was, and I remember one day sitting on the phone calls. He's calling tool guys and gear manufacturers and truck manufacturers, and I could hear them saying, "Listen, that's just not how it's done." And him telling him, "Well, this is what has to happen." And I remember I had this like weird like flashback to being that kid sitting in his office over at City Hall and seeing that sign behind his head. I'm like, there it is, right there. Like, he's living that, you know, it wasn't just a cool plaque on the wall. You know, I mean, that's really what he believed in. You know, that's just how he was. This is what we're going to do. And by God, we're going to get it done. And, you know, we did, or he did most of the work. I just, you know, but it was, it was pretty awesome to see and be a part of. So
it's amazing what can come together when people stop thinking about all the boxes and they just start going for it, you know. I mean, there's been a lot of innovation over time because people just got on the bandwagon to do some crazy cool thing, you know. So.
For sure. So.
It was wild times. And then what's cool too is that it wasn't just like a lot of times in the fire service. You and I know this because we worked for Chief Harms. You know, who will never hear this episode, so I feel confident in saying this. But if you know, you know. But like,
right,
a lot of times actually chiefs are very territorial.
Okay.
And they're very much, this is my thing, and I will always be here. I'm not going to relinquish this. I believe, like, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I believe with all of my heart that your dad's mission was to get it started and dip out.
Yep. That was the deal. Was when he signed on for it, he told the mayor, the city manager, everybody, "I will do this for 1 year. After that, I'm done." He's like, I've served my whole life. It's time for me to enjoy my retirement and, you know, enjoy it with, you know, my wife. And I will do it for 1 year. And then he's like, you know, because he'd had a plan that he'd be there, you know, we'd start off in June, and then by winter time, he wanted to have an assistant chief. And the plan was to groom that assistant chief to eventually take over for him. And that was the plan kind of moving forward. Well, they got a little messed up, but, you know, it is what it is. They still have a great chief in there now. So, but that was it. That was the deal. I will do this for 1 year. After that, he's like, I will get you started. I will get you rolling. I'll make sure you're on a set glide path to continue growing and building. But after that, I'm out. It's time for me to go be retired. And like you said, most chiefs aren't that way. Like you said, I mean, it's like, this is mine. Nobody else is going to touch it. This is my ball. Nobody gets to play with it. And, you know, that wasn't my dad. He knew he was there for a singular purpose, and that was that.
Right.
So, but yeah, I remember those Harms days for sure. For sure.
Wow. I think they created the word bipolar because of him.
Oh no.
Just saying. What? I mean,
you might not be wrong.
I can remember, Ashley. So I'm in a training, we're in training, and they're usually how it works is you have a business meeting because it's only once a month, right? Or two or three times a month, I guess. But you'd have a business meeting because you're not always there. So you're not always getting information. So on training nights, the first probably 45 minutes would be him letting us know what's going on with this guy who kind of pissed him off in this sort of way. And like, if you weren't careful, if you weren't focused, like sometimes I have a tendency not to be when I don't care about the politics of the township, and I would tune out. So there's a night where he was talking and I was clearly not paying attention. So he asked me, "Mr. Parkin, are you paying attention?" And I go, "Nope." And he like flipped the thing and freaked out. Told me to go home, then not go home. We have training. But it would be like that, drop of a dime. everything seemingly was going it was just swimming. And then all of a sudden,
he's flipping tables.
You remember when we did that class, Jim, and you had broken your hand?
Oh gosh.
Can you imagine doing like meetings with him?
He wouldn't have, yeah. So I had broke my hand, so I had like the splint on, and we were going to this class, and so I'd sit.
Yeah, but it was like
right. So the splint made my hands like this pretty much. So I was sitting like this, and the guy was constantly like, "What?" I'm like, "No, my hand's not up."
Yeah. Well, I was in the same boat when we were starting the fire department. I had broken my hand in my full-time job, so mine was like this. I think is like how mine was stuck for the whole time. And I remember, doing stuff and whatever. Or once we finally went live, like it was a battle that me and my dad would have. Like, you can't go. Like you're out of work right now. Like you can't go on these calls. You can't.
Yeah.
You're not getting paid and whatever. I'm like, yeah, but. I have to. He's like, nope. And so it was this huge like argument. He's like, listen, you are out of work for an injury that you got at work. You can't be working someplace else. I was like, well, just don't pay me. He goes, no, that's not the thing. He's like,
it's the optics.
He's like, that's what he said. He's like, it's the optics. He's like, I need you here. I don't need you getting in trouble, and
yeah.
He's like, so I get it. He's like, I know you want to do this thing and be out there and whatever. He's like, but just get healed up first and then you'll be fine. But it was the same thing, like trying to get all that done and all that stuff. And I'm walking around with this giant cast on my hand, like, yeah, we're starting a fire department. I can't use both my hands, but hey.
Yeah, well, that's
it'll be
thing,
fine,
though, man, right? When you have that thing in you, where you just can't help it. When I broke my hand, I learned how to do IVs left-handed. And I tell my boss, I can do IVs lefty. Doesn't matter. Like, my partner can do all the lifting. I'll be fine. I can lift one-handed. It'll be fine. And you're like, no.
Right. Yeah.
That's not how that works. But it's just, when you have that service thing in you, it's just, it's this thing that, I mean, admittedly, I know you know this, like, you sometimes can't control it and it gets the better of you, and you just.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember a couple of different scenes we were on, or even at trainings. You remember we had those houses right behind the station that we were using for training and stuff? He's IC, or even on fires. He's IC and I'm doing operations, and there'd be times I would just feel his hand on the back of my coat, like pulling me backwards. He's like, you need to be back over here. I'm like, but my guys are in there. Like, my people are over here. I need to be up there. He's like, no. He's like, you're back here. He's like, you're not one of those anymore. I'm like, that's never going to change. Like, right. I can't. I remember we were at, I think it was a fire in Kings Point maybe or something. And I'm standing at the door yelling back to him and our assistant chief at the time. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, we all have radios. I don't know why I'm yelling from the door, but I didn't want to leave the door because my
fire
guys
service,
were inside.
man. That's what we do.
Yeah. Right. Like, I had a crew inside. I'm just standing at the door yelling back to them, and they're looking at me like, I don't know. So then I'm like yelling stuff over the radio, and it was a whole thing. So finally I had to walk back there. He's like, see, this is why you're supposed to be back here. I'm like, but that, okay.
Like, just that calm too, huh?
Yeah, I was like, all right, fine. But yeah, it never goes away.
So how long has it been now since it started? Since you started?
2 years.
That's what I thought. I thought it was only like 2 years.
Yeah, June of 19. June.
Yeah,
April, May, June. Yeah. April, May, June. Yeah, June of 19 is when we went live. So, So.
And they're doing great.
Yeah, they are. They're doing great things. I think they've got a new truck coming in. I know they ordered one. I talked to Chief Schreiber.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he's another one of those guys. He's one of those chiefs that's for the community, and don't know how he did it, but they're paying like $1 a month to lease a truck that's in there until the one is built and we have it. Like, it's cool, man. It's cool to have had a life where I've been surrounded by people who just want to be in service, you know what I mean? And just make that happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That was the thing is like I said, I watched it my whole life, and then I jumped into it too. And part of me, like, cause I became a firefighter at 18 and, at that time, I mean, you know how this is, like 18 years old, dads and sons, they don't really get along very well. Right. No. I mean, it's just kind of, So I went and joined the fire department, and it instantly just gave us that common ground to stand on. And it just, went from there. And he was, the one thing I do regret though, is he used to teach the fire science classes at Mott. But I never took any classes because at the time I was anti going to college. So I was like, nope. So that was one thing I do kind of regret not doing, because I've sat through other of his trainings and stuff, but to see him in that, because at the end of the day, as much as he loved the fire service and loved the community, teaching was his thing. He would never pass up the opportunity to drop some knowledge on somebody, to teach somebody something. Didn't matter whether it was about fire or, fishing, or, it didn't matter. Anything. Right. And so that was kind of the one thing I regret. But I remember when my younger sister got married. My dad was a fire chief out in Fenton at the time. We leave the ceremony, we're all going to the reception. And when I was a firefighter before, I'd always dreamed about being on a scene with my dad, right? Like that was always kind of this goal. So we're waiting in line to get to the reception, wherever they're doing the reception. And we're sitting there, we're in traffic forever. It's me, my sisters, and her husband and all this stuff. And I'm like, what is going on? So I hop out of the limo and I go run up there. Well, there was a rollover accident right at the entrance of where we were going to go get to the reception hall or whatever. And I see my dad out there, and he's got this black tux on, right? And my sister chose like this weird lavender purple thing for us to wear, right? So we got, and I'm wearing it too, right? So, but it wasn't like your normal lavender. It was like this, I don't know. So here we're both there in these black tuxes with lavender bow ties and the things, helping out on this rollover accident. And I was like, well, it's not the same thing, but at least,
it's
at least we're on the call together,
Looking good while we're doing it.
Right. I'm like, who's gonna crawl on the ground to get under there? Because we got tuxes on. Luckily, Fenton Township showed up, took care of it, but it was just kind of funny. Like,
that is really
I always imagine being on a scene, but not in a tuxedo. But here we are. So
that's cool though.
Yeah, it was pretty right. Yeah, it was pretty funny. So, yep. It was
man.
Good times.
Absolutely. And so now, like, it seemed like all of a sudden for me that you're in a Flint PD uniform. I didn't even know that was a thing. It was like I was literally, Ashley, how it feels to me is like I ran one call on the Ambo at Hurley, and I came back another call, and here's this guy. I'm like, what?
Well, I think there was a day business? That I think on the one ride along, I think I did meet you, Brandon. But it was like so quick, and everybody, it's so funny because there's the little like 8-year-old kid in me that when I see an officer, I'm like, oh, pay attention, like don't get in trouble, So it's just funny. It's just funny. Yeah, I'm one of those citizens that would just cry if you pulled me over because I'm like so nervous, but I don't want to be the lady crier because I don't want anybody to ever think that I'm trying to get out a ticket or anything like that. But yeah, that's me. It's great. But no, I do think that there is. I forget. I remember the house that we were at, but I don't remember what we were at the house for though, Jim. But I think it was. I forget what day it was, but
it's possible. Oh, I love it. it was probably the best decision I've ever made. I was at the county for 4 years. Left there. I was working for, Steve Hernandez. I was working for him for a couple months. But I went to the police academy through the sheriff's office. I was working in the courts during COVID, so I wasn't actually doing police work. And then I lost you guys. Hold on. My kid was trying to call me. Sorry.
No, you're good.
And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to Flint. I want to go be police. I'm going to go to Flint. So I start the process with Flint, sign the offer letter. I hadn't signed it. And that's when Hernandez called me and said, hey, I need you to come run my GSOC, run my Intel Center. And I was like, all right, yeah, I'm going to do that instead. So told Flint, listen, I'm not coming. I got this offer in the private sector. I'm going to go do that. But I went down there, and I love Hernandez. I've known him forever. He's a great dude. But I still had this itch to go be a cop, right? To like be police. Like I still had to do it. So I emailed the recruiter and I was like, hey, listen, I already went through the whole process, got to the offer letter portion. Like, is it still possible for me to come back? He said, yeah, just go take a drug test. You're in. He's like, because you already did everything else. I was like, yeah, background's done. Everything's done. Like, he's like, go take a drug test and we'll get you in here. And I've been there. It was a year on the 16th of this month. So it's been a wild ride out there.
So what part of it wanting to go into law enforcement?
It was just something I always wanted to do as a kid growing up. My dad was a cop in Grand Blanc, and I remember watching him do it, but it was just I always had 3 goals: to be a cop, a firefighter, and be in the military. And
that's awesome.
So now
and then
I've done all 3.
So you went into the Army after being at the fire department too? Like after being, So
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yep. So I became a firefighter at 18. I joined the Army at 23.
Okay.
Got out at 33, and then, and not that I had written the fire service off, because I had been on the smaller volunteer departments while I was still in the Army. And I got out, and I was kind of just floating around, not really finding that fire department I wanted to go to, and then that opportunity came up to start the city department, and jumped back in with both feet. And then, I was still at the county then. And then it was like, I still have to go do this cop thing. Like, there's still one more goal that has to be realized. Like, let me get this done. And it's the best decision I ever made.
Well, that's really cool, because I know we've heard from, I forget who else we talked to, that just made that decision later on in life. Mm-hmm. I think that, at least for myself, a lot of people put pressure on, like, well, I didn't do this back in the day. Like, I didn't start doing piano lessons, so now I can never learn piano, or I never, did this.
Right.
So I think that's really encouraging for folks that maybe they started doing it one way and then realized, what, this just isn't. Or maybe, like you said, there's other things that I want to accomplish and be a part of,
Right.
So that's really encouraging.
Well, I think it helps too, and I don't mean to sound any kind of way with this, but being the fact that I'm almost 40 and just starting off as a cop, I don't have that young, like, I'm invincible, bulletproof mentality, right? It's like, no, let's take our time for a second here, ladies and gentlemen. Like, it kind of bring a little bit more life experience to the table, as opposed to just running in blind and, kind of take that moment of pause. But
it's extremely valuable.
Yeah, man. So that's cool. Like, as you know, that I recently switched agencies myself, man. Like I was telling the other day. Yeah, sometimes make a change is the best possible thing you can do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's weird too, because I was at Swartz for so long, and they never really got behind any of the side hustle, any of the Lighthouse Experiment stuff. None of it. Never even, but like, we have like vice presidents and like the top 3 in the company want to come on the show. They want to, like, whatever you're doing, you can continue to do. You have our full support. Like,
nice.
Which has been cool, but it's,
Well, that's the way it should be. I mean, and you guys know this as well as I do, you invest in your people, right?
Right.
And the things that they're doing, they're going to turn around and invest in you and the company that they work for, or agency, or however you want to put it. And I can tell you, it's been my experience since I've been out that it's not always been the case. They want you to invest in their thing, but not put that much back into you. And it's whereas Flint does that. I mean, for all the woes that are there in that city, I mean, our department still takes care of us. They still do a great job. They still look out for us, because they know that we're out there running our tails off all night, and stuff like that. And they do the best that they can to look out for us and do what they got to do. And plus we have same thing. We've got amazing leadership from the top down. I'm not just saying that. I'm not just saying that because one of them might hear this one day. Like, I honestly believe it. Like, we have amazing leadership from the top on, from the chief all the way down to our shift lieutenants and sergeants and stuff like that. I mean, they're top notch. So.
Right. And it's funny too that you mentioned that, because, a few years ago that documentary came out about Flint PD, and everyone kind of you either like it and appreciate it, or you throw it shade. But I can remember, like, early on, like in like the opening segment of the first episode, one of the officers said something to me that was not to me, but said something. And in my opinion, it was so poignant and so important for the city. He just said, show me another group of officers in any other city in America in this situation that could do this. And at that time is when I think they had like 99 officers 99 sworn officers for upwards of 100,000 citizens.
Yep. I mean, we're not that far off now. It's numbers are still relatively the same, but yeah.
And what's interesting is they would show like just how long it takes to get to a call, and you guys are just going from call to call to call to call. Mm-hmm. And now the EMS system in the city is in the same, well, in the county really is in the same mess. Mm-hmm. Now there'll be calls like priority 1, dad's having a heart attack, holding 20 minutes, 25 minutes, like, because there's just not enough of us. And now that's us, call to call after call after call after call.
Yep. I've seen it out there. I mean, we get welfare checks with EMS or this or that or whatever. And it's like, hey, listen, I need an ambulance. All right, well, your closest ambulance is coming from Fenton or whatever. And it's like, listen, I can get this person there in my cruiser faster than, like, you know what, just as long as it's not life-threatening, right? I mean, if it's not a life-threatening thing, but, or even if it is sometimes, but it's like, we'll just cancel them. Like, well, we can get to Hurley in 3 minutes as opposed to waiting
33
33 minutes, so.
And it's just, and honestly, so what's cool about, being with MMR is that we now run the majority of the city calls. Mm-hmm. So we're with these guys, and the police department that really has not the resources to be constantly running people up to Hurley are the only ones running people up to Hurley. Everyone else waits.
Yep.
But it's always been like that. My whole career, it's been like that. We have this psych dude needs to go to the hospital. You guys are good. We'll just take him.
Yep.
That's awesome.
It's so in my last years, my last few years of my career, it's cool to be one where I only have to do the medic stuff and run emergencies and do that thing, but 2, to be kind of in the city, like fully immersed in the city now, instead of every now and again we pop a call.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely a whole other animal working in that city, working in that town. But even some of those psych patients,
freaking Wild West.
It is too. I was just having that conversation with somebody today. I think it was my barber, and I was like, man, it's the Wild West. I was like, we can go to a call from, this business alarm to there's a guy walking down Robert T shooting guns off to, okay, we cleared that up, got that taken care of. Now we got this domestic because the girlfriend got mad, the boyfriend took the couch cushions or whatever, and then now we're gonna go do this. And and it's just no 2 nights are ever the same. And we're busy. I mean, we have our slow times, it's when you're running 20 calls as opposed to 30, right? But and it's just, but I will sometimes though with the psych patients, like, what, we are gonna wait for EMS on this one. Like, they can ride with them. Like, we're not taking this one.
Absolutely. But what's funny too, man, is because there's stuff that happens now that I've been at this so long that's just like, we had a call in the city limits for a dude he was wearing winter, like, it was in the winter, so he had like Sorels on, nothing but chonies, so he's underwear, Sorels, and he had a katana like on his back, just walking.
Nice.
And like that call goes out, and it's not even surprising. It gets plausible.
Mm-hmm.
Let's run this dude to Hurley.
Yep.
That's so nice about it. That's fun. I'm cold. I'm like, all right. How long you been out here? Like 8 hours. All right. Before hypothermia sets in, get you up for some hot coffee and a sandwich, brother.
There we go. We had one like that back in the winter. The guy, where the 12th Street yards are, where like all of our, they fix all our cruisers and stuff. We get a call. We call earlier in the night. Guy ran away from one of the AFC homes, right? So we're out looking for him as we can between calls, and then we get a call for an alarm at the yards. So we go pulling up there, my partner and I, and you see this guy. Remember in Forrest Gump when he sees Lieutenant Dan, the wave that he does? That's what this guy did, standing in the doorway of this building, just sitting there, just waving. Same thing, just pair of boxers, no shirt. I think he might have had socks on, and he had like a little Nerf gun, just standing there, just waving. We're like, hey, buddy, like, let's get you. I think we had him go by via ambulance. We're like, let's get you. He's like, yep. He's like, I got mad, so I left. And then I got cold, so I broke this window. Now here I am. We're like, all right, well, let's get you same thing. Let's go get you a coffee and a sandwich, buddy. Let's get you out of here. But
so good.
It didn't surprise us at all, though. We're like, we just drive by, like, yep, there he is, just standing there, just waving. Like, I'm ready to go home now. Okay, we got you, pal.
Oh, buddy.
Yeah. Nothing in that city surprises me at all.
Oh, man.
So
the cool thing is I don't know. I'm an accountant. I have a 4-year private degree. Like, my parents were a realtor and a nurse, but my mom really never, like, she wasn't in ER. She was in the ICU, but she didn't talk a whole lot about her job. But I don't have any, like, military in my family, nothing. So I'm just, like, bookkeeper. I don't know what I'm doing. And I go on a ride along with Jim. And there's just so much. Like, I'm a great example of the everyday person that just has no clue. And so I've learned a lot in the last 2 years. Hanging out with these guys and stuff. It's been phenomenal. So one of the really, really cool, that reminds kind of what we're talking about, is that the call that we went on, Jim, and the mother had fallen down and had a heart attack or something like that, and everybody came to the house. But it was also a well-known house, like family business in the area type thing.
Yep.
The fire department was there, the police. So I think we're just going to a regular Joe Schmo call, and we get there and it's like everybody from the city is here showing up, and it was I know that there's a brotherhood with the police, there's a brotherhood with fire, like all this stuff, but to see like everybody, I didn't realize how much everybody knew everybody. And that was really, really cool to see, and it was just really neat to see the interaction with like so many people from like the whole thing.
Well, I mean, I know everybody because I'm older than everybody.
Well, yeah, that too. I mean,
I've always been here. Some of these dudes
are like, turning into Grandpa Moses, Jim.
Yeah. I think that's how I get away with it, because they're like, this dude's older than freaking rope, man. We may as well just let him run it.
Right.
With his flat brim hats and his bands, this dude.
Just leave him alone.
Let him do his
thing. It's funny too, because we have a young supervisor that's like, he started chirping me a couple weeks ago. He's always getting a little long. And like our ops manager's like, just leave him alone. There's no point in this discussion.
Just leave the old guy alone. Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Anyway, man. Well, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me.
Good.
I wanted to kind of spin yarn on your dad and stuff like that. It was, like I said, I'm known as chaplain in the EMS world now, in the fire department, and it was his idea. You know what I mean? And it was just, it was like, sincerely, it was super. My favorite days in the fire service was building Grand Blanc City.
Absolutely.
And then dipping out. So.
Yep. Absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me on here again. It's always fun to be on here and talk to you guys.
Absolutely.
So
I'm sure I'll see it. Probably not, man. I work during the day, so I'm not.
Yeah, I'm on nights. So.
Yeah, I can't do that.
I love it. It's the best time. We have a blast on our night shift. So
I will say this, so interesting so next Wednesday, I am meeting a woman who I thought, because she had a massive seizure and stroke, I thought she had died. As it turns out, she survived with little to no deficits. And on Wednesday, there's this whole MMR event, and my partner and I apparently are meeting her.
Nice.
I guess. I don't know how. I honestly, at this point, I don't know how I feel about that. But she wants to meet us, and my boss said that we would be happy to.
Right.
Awesome.
And then told us, hey, so you guys are coming in. I told her you guys would be happy to meet her. I'm like, thanks, Steve. We would be. My boss now is another one of those guys that just has that thing about him. Like, all right, whatever you say, man, I'll do it.
Yep.
So.
Yep. That's how my shift supervisors are. Oh, you want me to go do this? Okay, whatever.
Yep.
You tell me to do it, I'm going to do it. Like, whatever. You want me to run through that wall? Okay, I'll go run through the wall. Like, it's the same thing. So
it's the best, man. That's a cool position to be in, is have leadership where you're like, absolutely.
Yep.
And being experiencing the opposite of that, I really have in these last few months, I really embraced the idea having leadership where I'm like, I will absolutely do that.
Definitely. It is. It's, yeah, there's nothing like it. It's pretty amazing to be able to have that, as opposed to stand back going, well, I don't know if that's a good idea. You know? It's like, okay, yeah. It's like you're almost excited, right, for them to tell you to go do this. Maybe it's a ridiculous thing or not a ridiculous thing. But like, all right, yeah, whatever. Like, I don't care. Sure.
Yeah.
Instead of questioning it, like, yeah, I don't know about that. So it's a good position to be in for sure. Definitely. So.
Well, all right, man.
All right, guys.
Land the plane here, man. Thanks again for coming on. This will be up tomorrow.
Okay.
So
awesome.
We'll get you the link or whatever, share it out, tell the people.
Definitely.
So, all right, man. Thanks.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Thanks, man.
See ya.
You got to do the outro.
Yeah. Okay. All right. As usual, thanks for tuning in, everybody. And thank you to Freedom Center Church and Kingdom Builders for making this possible. See you next time.